Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
Before you commit to a destination, look into how much it's going to cost to get there, whether it's flying or driving, and sort of narrow things down based on that. Because whether you're saying I'm going to go to Montana or New Mexico or California, like you can have great trips in all of those places. See how much it's going to cost for you to get there.
This is Common Denominator, straight-up conversations with Moshe Popack. Relying on critical thinking and open-spirited debate, we invite you to find common ground on everyday issues and encourage you to be bold, to be optimistic, and to take action. To learn more, head to moshepopack.com, and we'd be so grateful if you'd like, share, and subscribe to the show. Now, here's your host, Moshe Popack.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today, expert insight on where to travel this summer, how to do so on a budget, and what we can learn from different cultures across our vast country. But first, I'm really excited to share that we will be giving away a Common Denominator gift basket to a lucky listener that includes merch, mugs, and much more. Later in this episode, I'll share a password. To be entered to win, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at mpopack and DM me that password on any of the platforms. Now, back to the show. Henley Vazquez is the co-founder of Fora and a travel enthusiast. She'll share her favorite spots for you and your family to visit, introduce you to some of America's hidden gems, and break down the most important aspects of a successful family vacation. Hi, Henley. Welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for joining us. So top of my mind, I'm thinking, in America, what is your favorite spot to travel to?
So it's hard to pick at this point because I think, like so many people, I've really focused a lot of my travel in the last 2 years on seeing domestic destinations I hadn't visited before. But if I really had to choose, I would say the American West as sort of a region that just in general offers a little bit of everything, sort of cultural intersections, history, outdoorsiness, which we've all become, more outdoorsy in the past few years, ready to get off our sofas, and just a real variety of experiences that you don't get elsewhere. And I know that's a big region because it covers a lot of states, but it really has become a place that I just return to again and again.
So you're thinking more Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, that kind of. Right.
Yes, although I would argue I just did New Mexico, and this has now become, of the American West, I think it is like the most sort of overlooked out west destination. It tends to be less expensive for starters, like Wyoming, Colorado, Montana. They're obviously stunning, incredible locations. Obviously, with the Yellowstone series, it has gotten really popular to go to Montana. New Mexico is often overlooked, really needs tourism dollars spent there, and has some incredible history. It has the Native American culture, wildly amazing food, and really interesting properties that I think a lot of people miss out on when they're only thinking of sort of west, north, not southwest.
Yeah, so I did spend time in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and I agree with that. And I just saw recently that New Mexico, I guess because of the oil dollars, they just brought in the most amount of revenue of the state. So now they're thinking about, so I'm sure it's going to be tourism, like how do they grow their economy. So that's interesting that you mentioned New Mexico. In general, I think of two boxes when it comes to travel. I think of, experiences, or just to, go to kind of like a beach town and do nothing. What do you see your typical travelers looking to do? Is it evenly split?
Yeah, I think it is evenly split. I will say what's interesting to see is that there's less focus on I want to go stand in a museum for hours these days. It's more like the cultural interest tends to be more sort of real life interest. So for example, you're in South Beach, it's, I want to sit on the beach some, but I also want to go to the Windward Walls. I want to also go to some local galleries. I want to go to Little Havana. I want to sort of experience the places from a cultural aspect, but not necessarily in some sort of sterile looking at the works of great masters way, which I think is a real difference from before. We're are people going to come to New York and go to the Met? Absolutely. But are they also going to explore Brooklyn or wander around the more residential neighborhoods? That too. And so a little bit more of trying to connect to local places and just experience a destination rather than being so scheduled out in a more traditional sort of pre-pandemic way.
It was so funny. He's talking about non-traditional. And this actually kind of shocked me. I saw an article on the East Coast, the number one booked Airbnb was a sort of form of treehouse. Like people want it, right? It was like
Makes sense.
right. The people they wanted different experiences. It seems like.
We've been between our own four walls for 2 years. I think we want to get out. We're willing to be a little more adventurous. We're willing to take some risks, both in terms of like maybe staying in a treehouse or maybe going to somewhere we didn't know about anymore. We're still traveling with parameters that we have to work around based on sort of COVID restrictions and just the prospect of getting sick. So I think, yeah, people, they're looking for within that what they can do that's different. It feels exciting and new.
So the overall theme of the show is about bringing people together and the things that we have in common, different than the things that we don't have in common. I personally find when I travel to immerse myself in the local culture, even though it's completely different than what I'm used to the day to day. Do you find that travel does that? That travel, if you, I guess, allow yourself to that, it allows people to come together?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's no greater uniter than having sort of a joint experience together. So you can sort of forget about your differences. You're not standing there in front of like a really cool piece of street art and arguing with somebody about politics. You're talking about what you're looking at. You're not climbing a mountain with somebody and really focusing on, the differences. You're just having this experience that you're both going through together. And so I think that there's the doing things in a place with other people that you don't know that can be really great. So a tour, a museum, sort of connecting with other people. And then I think just experiencing, whether it's a cuisine or a destination that's different than where you come from, it opens your eyes. Like it gives you empathy. It makes you understand that other people, maybe they have different opinions because they have a different lifestyle, and you can start to sort of comprehend that. And it's not in some sort of didactic way. It's just actually your brain starts to sort of absorb a little bit of these differences, which is why I always tell people, like, don't just go to the fancy restaurants, like get out, go somewhere local, try the street food vendor, talk to your taxi driver, like find anything that gives you a connection to a place.
So a lot of my wife and I would talk about a lot of countries have become commercialized. What are when you're traveling? I like to spend time with local, different type of experience rather than the McDonald's of things, I guess you want to call it that, right? So what would be practical tips if I'm going to a new country? How do I get in and immerse with the local culture?
Well, I think you get out of the city center for starters. So if you're coming to New York, sure, if you've never been here, you might want to see what Times Square is all about. But then you should really get out of there and go where people live, because there's a lot to be said for there. And you're going to get more local food, more seeing, like go to the local park. What are the families doing there? What are they eating? Where are they shopping? You're going to get more interesting stores if you're shopping outside of Fifth Avenue. You're going to get more interesting experiences away from the city center. So I would say that's anywhere. And it's European and it's domestic. Don't go to Paris and just walk around the Louvre. Like go out to the outer neighborhoods and sort of understand what's going on out there. But I think that's the number one thing, is just getting away from the tourist sites. And also, like, who really wants to be like stuck in throngs of people and crowds? You want to go at your own pace. And then, yeah, I keep harping back to food, but I really think that what people eat, it sort of defines who they are. So finding places that feel like you, and whether you're with your kids or whether you're with your wife, sort of have like a real meal that showcases what's there. Because if you see what people are eating and what they're serving, for example, New Mexico, it's all the chilies. And suddenly you learn about the red chilies and the green chilies and the Christmas sauces and all of these different things that I knew nothing about until I got there. And I wouldn't have known that if I was just eating at the chains.
So if you're just joining us, we're sitting down with Henley Vazquez and we're talking about your summer travel plans. But as I mentioned earlier, we'll be giving away a common denominator gift basket to a lucky listener that includes merch, mugs, and much more. All you got to do is follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Popack and DM me the password. And the password is the word travel. So good luck, and we'll announce the winner later this week. Now, back to the show. Take us through the process. So you have this incredible company, Fora, and you plan incredible travel itineraries. So let's say I called you. What would be that process? Someone said, I'm open to, like you're saying, new experience. What would be that process? What would it look like?
So the first thing we would probably want to do is find out, what are your tastes? Where have you been? What have you liked before? And how could we match you up with an advisor? Because really the purpose of this company isn't so much to say, please let me plan your trip. It's actually to empower lots of people who are out there doing trip planning on their own already and not getting paid for it, and help give them the job to do what I'm doing. So I've done this for 15 years. I'm really good at my job. But what about all those people out there, the moms who they help each other out between drop off and pick up for school, and they're actually doing a lot of trip planning and nobody's paying them to do this job. They've previously been sort of sidelined out of an industry like mine. I really wanted to crack that open and give all of these people an opportunity. So the really cool thing is that when somebody comes to the website and says, match me with an advisor, and we get a little bit of information about that, we're matching them up to someone who has the same taste as them, who has knowledge in the place that they're going. You get such a broader variety of wealth of information when you have a larger community that is diverse, both geographically, both in terms of the planners, who they are, and that's what makes it really special.
So I guess these travel advisors, you decentralize the travel agency. Is that kind of the idea with you can make a community?
Yes.
Right. That's
We
pretty cool.
decentralize it, and we also really want to welcome non-professionals into it. So traditionally in this industry, it's like, you can't sit with us unless you are a professional and this is all you do all day long and you've spent a lot of money on an expensive training course. You don't get to do this job. And my feeling is that, well, there's lots of people who know a lot about travel but they can only do this part-time. They can do it in addition to their regular job. They can do it while they don't have their kids. And if you give those people the opportunity to have a really fun and meaningful and interesting part-time job, how does that change people's lives? How does it connect them with others when they're helping them plan travel? How does it give them the income to pay for summer camp for their kids? There's a lot that can be done if we just open it up to a few more folks.
Well, I think bring to your point meaning and purpose, right? And it's always funny when because I live in Miami, and sometimes we go out to Disney World and watching, people just, I guess they want that escape, so they're just adults, millions of adults daily going to living in Orlando and going to the parks. So I want to just dial back to the process, trip planning 101. You're planning a family trip. What is the correct amount of days when you have the whole family, you've saved up, and here you are? How many days do you think a family trip should be?
I think it depends on the destination. So if you're going somewhere short haul, probably 3 to 5 days is going to do it. Typically, probably more like a week is a traditional vacation. Long haul, so you're taking the family on safari, obviously that's a very different kind of thing. But I would say typically more than a week. People get a little tired of being in a hotel room together. The fizzle goes when you get more than a week. So I think, again, look at your destination, think about where you're going, but traditionally somewhere in that realm of around 7 days is the sweet spot. I would also say that most families have a hard time organizing schedules, especially as they get kids that are older and have summer programs or school schedules. So the week and just work, hey, we adults, we have to be at work. To take more than a week off right now is really hard. People are working really hard, trying to get a good paycheck. So a week is a sweet spot where you can get away, you can actually have enough time to disconnect, and then you can come home. However, I will say, don't sleep on the weekends. It is a great time to just, if you can bop out somewhere, that really makes a lot of the time that you naturally have off anyways.
Yeah, I know I talk about the weekends. I always think about it like a staycation, just pop out.
Love it.
Right.
Staycation is me personally, maybe one of my favorite trips, because I don't have to fly anywhere. I don't have to fight my way through security. I don't have to spend $1 gazillion to fill up my gas tank. And I get to really enjoy my own city as a tourist. So I also can splurge a little bit more on the hotel because I'm not spending money to get there. It's a 5-star trip for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then going to the point of, I always go through it in my mind because, when I travel with my family, do I plan a detailed agenda day by day, or do I kind of, leave it up to, as things progress daily?
I think winging it can get challenging with kids. So my kids are 15, 12, and 4. So I have very different ages that I have to handle. My rule is I have one activity planned every day, one activity that's going to work for everybody. And I have a dinner reservation every day. I do not want to be questioning where I'm going to eat at the end of the day when everybody's tired and cranky. And I don't want to wake up in the morning not knowing what we're going to do. After that, I leave a little bit of open time so that everybody has some flexibility. I think we all need time to let our kids just like sit on some iPads and ignore us for a while. That is nice for everybody, but I want to have one activity and I want to have dinner.
And I always think about, I remember going to that example, went to Universal Studios, and we were with another family. So I think it's also, if you're traveling with other families, making sure like the kids are the same age and same interests. Because here I am, I had smaller kids, and literally all they wanted to do, there was a tree outside going into, and for an hour and a half, they're playing on the tree, but they're so happy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
so happy. But the other family, their kids are like, I want to hit every ride. I want to go, right? So so you got to make sure that the people you're going with has the right alignment to you.
Yeah, totally. The right alignment. And that's also where that downtime is important, because even if they're your best friends in the world, even if your kids are totally aligned in what they're interested in, everybody needs a break from each other. And so having a little bit of downtime where everybody can sort of settle with their own family can be really nice.
And I also, when I try, so I have 10 kids, and I do travel. I find right. So it's a lot, and
I'm so impressed.
yeah, and I do travel, and what I find is the family connection, the bond, in the not the similar regimen, the regimen of every day, helps bond the kids together. That's what I find as well. So
I totally agree. And I also, when people say things like, oh, the young ones, they're too young to remember this. Why are you doing this? I totally disagree with that, because I think, well, first of all, I'm going to remember it. It was a great experience for me to do this with my younger kids. But the other thing is, like, yes, the older ones are helping out with the younger ones. You sort of bond everybody together in these experiences. And I do think stuff sits in even the little kids' heads as a memory that reminds them, like, we did this and we went somewhere together. And even just like overcoming the humps of like dealing with a flight or dealing with a long car drive, like all of that, having a little bit of friction in our lives sort of bonds us together a little bit more. We did it together.
yeah, no, to that point, just the other day, my 14-year-old told me, oh, when we were 3, we went there and we did exactly that. So you don't know where the memory is going to come, and that's the positive memory, and so which is great. Nowadays, obviously, we've been in this COVID process for 2 years, and now everyone's first summer in 3 years that people kind of going out. Do you feel that at this point, do you think people are still concerned about COVID?
Yes, but in a very different way than they used to be. So they're not so much worried about getting sick and being ill in a dangerous way. What they're worried about is getting sick and getting stuck. So testing positive outside of the country and not being able to return, which does happen, or getting sick before they travel and having their trip messed up. So there's the issue really of like cancellation or being stuck. Not so much, I don't hear anybody anymore saying like, I'm really worried about my health. It's all just, I'm worried about what happens if I can't get home.
Right. And I know just overall, it seems like whether it's flights, whether it's hotels, car rentals, from 3 years ago, I don't know, I not that I've been tracking exactly, but it seems like pricing and availability has gone nuts, like doubled, right?
It's totally crazy. And I think there is a bit of, it's like supply and demand. So everybody is traveling again. We don't have all the flight routes back the way they used to be. There aren't enough rental cars or cars to buy actually at this point. And there aren't enough hotel rooms for domestic travel, given how much more popular domestic travel is these days. So you've got a lot of demand and not enough supply, and the prices have gone through the roof here and internationally. It's kind of everywhere. And it's hard because I won't say that the experience has gotten better. I mean, you're more likely to have your flight canceled, it feels like. I don't know, data-wise, not sure, but certainly feels that way. And hotels are still understaffed. They're still struggling to hire. So it's not that you're paying twice and getting twice. You're paying twice and maybe you're getting 75%. So I think you just have to roll with it. You know, you just have to know I'm doing this and I'm spending a lot of money and I'm spending it to do this, and it's not going to be perfect. And if I think it's going to be perfect, I'm going to drive myself nuts.
And kind of high level, if we are, traveling with a budget, kind of 2-3 tips, how to make, I guess, the most bang for the buck.
Yeah, I will still say I think that you do get better deal domestically, and that really has to do with the flight. So one of the things that I tell people is, like, look, we've got a lot of cool places that we can go. Before you commit to a destination, look into how much it's going to cost to get there, whether it's flying or driving, and sort of narrow things down based on that. Because whether you're saying I'm going to go to Montana or New Mexico or California, like, you can have great trips in all of those places. see how much it's going to cost for you to get there. So that I actually do this with my own travel. I narrow it down based on flight price first, and then I start to focus on the trip, because the last thing I want to do is spend all this time finding hotels that suit my budget only to find out I can't actually afford to get there. So I'd say if you can end up in a situation where you're not eating out every meal, that obviously makes a big difference if you're traveling with kids. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean like renting a house. Just like find ways even to do like some takeout from some cute place and eat on the beach, or to pick some prepared foods and have them in a hotel room for your lunch or your breakfast. There's a lot of ways to do it without saying, I don't want to cook on vacation. It's the last thing I want to do, but there's ways to not actually be sitting in a restaurant for all of your meals. And then laundry. Do not do your laundry in a hotel. Find ways, either pack enough, be willing to rewear your clothes, knowing that it's going to be okay. Like do a little sink laundry, but do not pay for that hotel laundry. That will blow your budget every single time.
For sure. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. And I think it's really cool what you're doing with Fora, and I
Thank you.
Want to wish you much success. I'm sure it'll be super successful. And if people want to find out more about Fora, how can they do that?
Yeah, so you can just go to our website, which is foratravel.com, and then you can interact how you want. If you're interested in becoming an advisor, join us. You can click onto the wait list. You'll be sent a survey and get into the process of becoming a travel advisor yourself. If you're just looking to plan a trip, you can get matched with an advisor, and we'll find somebody to help you get on the road successfully for your next vacation.
Thank you so much, Henley. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Common Denominator podcast. Join us next week for another inspiring, impactful, and empowering conversation. To learn more about Moshe, head to MoshePopack.com. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it. And we'd be grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the show.